The Two Cousins, from the Tractate Middoth. A quiet library, autumn afternoon. On a cool autumn afternoon, an elderly gentleman entered a quiet library. He held out his library card and spoke with a polite but firm voice. "Mr. Eldred, calmly, I'd like to borrow a book. The Tractate Middoth, number 11334, I believe. I am unfamiliar with this library. Could someone fetch it for me?" A young librarian, Mr. Garrett, was passing by and promptly responded. "Mr. Garrett, politely, of course, sir. I'll fetch it right away." As Mr. Eldred sat near the entrance, he waited patiently. Moments later, Garrett returned with a regretful expression. "Mr. Garrett, apologetically, I'm very sorry, Mr. Eldred, but someone has already borrowed the book." Mr. Eldred, curious. "Are you sure?" Mr. Garrett. "Yes, sir. However, if you wait a moment, you might see the borrower on his way out. I didn't see him clearly, but I believe he was an elderly man in a black coat." Mr. Eldred hesitated, then shook his head. Mr. Eldred. "No, it's all right. I won't wait. But I shall return tomorrow. Perhaps you can find out who borrowed it." Eldred quickly left the library, leaving Garrett with a nagging thought. Mr. Garrett, thinking to himself, "I should check that room again. If I find the old man, maybe I can ask him to return the book sooner for Mr. Eldred." But to his surprise, when he returned, the book was back in its place. He felt uneasy. Had he simply overlooked it? The next morning, determined to correct his mistake, Garrett waited for Mr. Eldred's return. As soon as he arrived, Garrett greeted him earnestly. "Mr. Garrett. I'm terribly sorry for yesterday. I was certain the old man took the book. But if you wait just a moment, I'll fetch it now." Eldred sat down once again, but this time, the wait stretched on. After 20 minutes, he inquired at the front desk. Mr. Eldred, impatiently. "Is it very far where he went to retrieve my book?" Librarian. "No, sir, not far at all. It's unusual for him to take so long. I'll go check." Moments later, she returned, her face pale with concern. Librarian, worriedly. "I'm terribly sorry, sir, but something has happened to Mr. Garrett. He suddenly fell ill while looking for your book. We had to send him home." Mr. Eldred, surprised but composed. "I see. That's unfortunate. I'd like to visit him. Could you provide me with his address?" Garrett's home. At home, Garrett lay pale and weak in his chair. Mr. Eldred arrived and inquired gently. "Mr. Eldred. I'm so sorry for the trouble I've caused. What happened in that room? Did you fall? Did you see something?" Mr. Garrett, hesitant, weakly. I did fall, but it was because I saw something. Something dreadful." Mr. Eldred, hurriedly, interrupting. No. Don't tell me now. You mustn't distress yourself further." Eldred quickly left. Garrett, though still shaken, later confided in a fellow librarian, George Earle. "There's something strange going on. When we found you on the floor, there was a horrible smell in that room." Mr. Garrett. "That smell isn't always there. It started recently. But it wasn't the smell that made me faint. It was what I saw." Garrett described a terrifying figure, an old man in a black coat, his skin dry and dusty, his head completely bald, and worst of all. Mr. Garrett, whispering, horrified. He had no eyes. Burnstow-on-Sea. After being advised to take a break, Garrett traveled to Burnstow-on-Sea, where he befriended Mrs. Simpson and her daughter. Mrs. Simpson. "Perhaps you can help us with something. My uncle, Dr. Rant, left a will, but we never found it. Before he died, he told me he left it in a book. But we don't know which one. Garrett, piecing everything together, realized the book Eldred sought was the key to the lost will. The final confrontation. Determined, Garrett traced the book to Eldred's house and followed him. As Eldred finally found the hidden page, a shadow emerged. Two dark, clawed arms wrapped around Eldred's throat. No scream was heard. A final struggle, then silence. Eldred was dead. The truth revealed. The police found the altered will inside the book. The true heir was Mary Simpson. Justice had been served. And as for the eyeless man in black, some say, he was still watching.